2-3
Is
years
that Kyle?
ago.
Is that Kyle?
Yep,
posing
that's
as
Kyle
the
posing.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be me, and I was sick that day, so they threw Kyle in there,
Yeah.
and then it's just been Kyle's now the poster boy for all of our merchandise. Oh, that's right. Kyle just started, and they're like, "Okay, you're gonna do a photo shoot for all of our stuff." He's like, "Okay." Dude, thank you so much for this, man.
You're welcome.
This is so cool. I think I have the one that I have in my office is
The blue one with
the blue
paintbrush.
one, and it has the paintbrush.
Yeah.
It's the round
That's very
paintbrush.
too.
Yeah, this is dude, this is great. We were coming up with, well, we do a couple things. At one point, we were using that arm to like prop up other things, and then
it broke?
Yeah, well, it already broke, and I forget how it popped out in the first place, but. Anyways, we have all these little toys and things that we get from people like you and all these gifts. So our offices are filled with all these toys.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got to visit, when I saw Jaime's office, I'm like, oh man, you
Oh,
this,
dude,
this, and this.
he's
like,
got you can follow his whole career from ZBrush with all the toys and prints he has. He's got some really cool prints in his office. But what we started doing something with a Batman what's his name? Alfred from the Batman series. We have this little Alfred doll where he holds like a plate with, like tea, and they keep hiding Alfred throughout the office to see who will find it. I came into the office the other day, and Alfred was in a soap dish or a soap dish soap bottle, like a full one. And I guess I don't even know what you guys did, but I came into the kitchen. There's like Alfred sitting in front in this giant bottle of soap. It's like shipping a bottle. I was like, how did you do that? And then I saw the tape on the bottom. Somebody cut it open. It was still impressive. The only failure I think you guys had was you let the tape sit out, so it was too obvious. Like you had to like cleanly, so it wouldn't stick. Well, thanks so much, man. This is such a cool gift, and it actually brings me back to we were just talking about CTN. And that was it was around the same time when you gave me that first one, and that was the first time I met you at CTN.
Yeah.
It was that was my first ZBrush demo that I ever gave live, which I was showing that little mech robot dude with the little tread wheels.
Yeah.
And then you came up, and I'd seen you around before, but I hadn't really got a chance to know you. And I think that was that around the time when you were kind of like just getting back into ZBrush, like
do you remember what year that was?
I would say 2011.
Yeah, because
maybe?
I think so. That was the year that we moved out from New York, and I remember going to CTN, going, okay, I'm finally here in LA. What's the cool things to do? And this CTN was I think in a couple of years. It was getting bigger, and you guys.
It was like when it was right when it was starting to become huge before they put the big tent outside of the Burbank Convention Center, and it was the year after that was when they got really big. So it was
Yeah, so for me it was. I was just getting back into ZBrush because I had bought ZBrush back in 2001 when I was at Blue Sky.
Yeah.
That's how far I gone back. And I think it was like version 1.55 or something like that.
Yeah, that was me. Man, this is dating it, but I was in high school using ZBrush at the same time. Yeah. That's when I started, and I just was like, I would gravitated towards it. So it was very simple.
Yeah, I had it, and I would dabble with it. I never really got into it too much, and I would always see people using it on CG Talk or whatever, and going, man, I need to give this app a chance. And every time I would do it, I would maybe spend a day or two, but I'd get frustrated with the GUI, and I go back to because I'm a Maya guy.
Sure.
But then I made a concerted effort. I had a small window in between two freelance gigs, and I was like, I'm going to learn this program. So I did Ryan Kingsland's ZBrush workshops where he had that little like zombie demo.
Yep.
And the main thing is, and I'm an advocate of this too, is like I try to, whenever I was teaching and talking to students too, is like learn the GUI and learn all the keystrokes first. And for me, being an old dog, learning new tricks, I'm like so set my ways of using the software. I knew I had to make this leap. So I said, I'm just going to do it. I was going to sit down and just learn it. And once I did, then I found myself thinking like, I wish that other programs kind of had some of the navigation tools that ZBrush has.
Right.
It's a little more intuitive and easier to move around.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I say this with everything. The more time you spend on something, you dedicate yourself to one application or one workflow or way of navigating. It's so hard. The longer you've spent doing that, it's so hard to transition to something new. But once you do, especially with ZBrushes, we put a lot of time into trying to make it intuitive and not just like everything else. That's why the transpose tool currently in 4R7 is so different from any move or manipulator tool in other 3D apps. But the people that do know how to use it properly, you can actually do a lot more effectively. You can basically model and sculpt and move and scale and rotate and all those things at the same time. But it's just a lot of things to kind of grasp, especially if you're doing just standard Gizmo widget,
Even that you can like do measurements with that.
Yes,
I did that
exactly.
for years. And then,
Exactly.
like, oh yeah, you can like go from top to bottom and like boom, you got your measurements and your tick marks.
I would always use that. Like I would set it. There's a little trick where you can take the transpose tool, go from like the chin to the head. So if you want to do you want to measure the proper proportions of character, you could do 7 heads or 8 heads, and you can set it. So you can set it to your head and go into preferences and set your units to 1, and you can even label it head. So once you do that, you drag from the top all the way down, and it'll tell you in the top left 7.5 heads or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like little tricks like that you can do that. They're really nice to have every once in a while. But I get it. It's tough for everybody to have time to dedicate to it. But that, going back to CTN, what I appreciated so much about meeting you is that you were so enthusiastic and you just seemed so excited and eager to get into ZBrush. So I imagine it was like that was the time where you were like, okay, I'm going to do this, and you were kind of just hitting all the places where you could learn.
And actually, I spent those 3 days sitting at the ZBrush booth pretty much all day.
Yeah.
And just watching all the presenters. And that's how I learned a lot, just from watching people use it.
Yeah. Dude, honestly, that's to anybody that's trying to learn. It sucks if you don't live in Los Angeles, if you don't live in the West Coast, but I say this, I think, on every podcast, but we're so fortunate here because us at Pixelogic, we put on a lot of events and things like that where you get to watch other people present, but also just that community aspect and being able to go to these places and watch somebody do it, I think is one of the best ways to learn. Sure, you need to learn the basics somewhere. You got to get an education or whatever. But as far as implementing and artistic abilities, watching how pros do it and watching how people that figured out a way helps you to kind of work your own system into there. And, you can kind of watch somebody do like an advanced tip and be like, oh, that's interesting. How can I? And then you try it, but then you change it and make it your own. You find a way to do it. But we're super fortunate. And it's one of the reasons why we started posting all that stuff online was because our community is worldwide. We have people in all different countries. So it really wasn't fair to just be like CTN used to just be Paul in a small little booth just talking to people. And then I think it was around the time when I came on that we decided, okay, we should start putting cameras up, and I would just, cut it together. I would check everything, and then all these guys came out, and now we're able to do more, which is far better than it ever was, as far as education goes. But yeah, like I always thought that I assumed that you were just a ZBrush guy for so long, like especially that era when I first met you, and then you were doing more ZBrush, you were working on Sketchbot, and you were posting all kinds of work, and then I, come to find out you have a whole background in animation as well as directing, I guess. So as far as the people that don't know you or don't know your history, where was your start, as an artist in the 3D industry, and where did you begin?
So when I was in school, I was a music major. I played trombone for 14 years, and I went to a community college right out of high school because I couldn't afford to go to ASU right off the bat. And I was thinking about I was going to be a musician.
Are you California born?
No, born in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Raised in Arizona.
Yeah.
Cultured in New York.
I grew up
now laid back in California.
Nice. Well, that's why you're so chill, because you have this perspective that Kyle and I both grew up in Michigan, so we were born and raised in that neck of the woods. But yeah.
So here's my path is kind of interesting because I thought I was gonna be a music major for a while, but I started drawing like when I was in 3rd grade. So drawing was my first passion always, and I started playing trombone in 3rd grade as well. But when I was in high school, I was like I wanted to be a comic book artist. So I would what every kid does, I would I was reading Marvel, and at the time Spider-Man and Iron Man were my big books. I got into like in the mid 70s. Mm-hmm. That's probably dating me, but I was 12 when Star Wars came out. And
all right. First release, because for some of us, Star Wars, they did the re-release ones, which is like my era. It was just like the ones that everybody hates on with all the extra special effects. Like, we just want the original.
So I still remember going to, it was the Cine Capri, the largest theater at the time in Arizona. My parents took us to see it, and just like watching that Death Star Destroyer going overhead, just going,
oh yeah.
And like that, and I was like hooked.
Yep.
And that movie, and then Tron and Blade Runner were the other two big ones when I was in high school that
Jeff
got
Bridges.
me going down that path. So, but I was like thinking I was gonna be a comic book artist, and I remember I actually, and this is like pre-internet, pre-anything. Like I looked up in the phone book and I found this guy who was drawing Batman for DC Comics. He lived in Mesa.
Oh my gosh!
And I met him at a comic book store like 2 years before that or whatever. He signed one of my copies, and so I called him on the phone, and he invited me to his house where he had a studio, and I got to go and show him some of my stuff and get some advice.
Wow.
And here's the funny thing.
You found him in the phone book.
Yes, and I basically invited myself over, and
that phone books
he came by,
existed.
and he said, "Come on over."
Yeah.
And so he had like a little drafting table set up, and he had like the comic racks on the spindles, and DC would send him all the comic books so he would know the storylines if they were doing any crossovers.
Yeah.
And I saw on his table, he was working on actually a groundbreaking. There was like they were changing Robins at the time, so I got to see something in pencils. But what I didn't realize was that you drew comics like 2 times larger on Bristol board in blue line, and then you painted. I had no idea about this, and so I was kind of mind blown there. And so I showed him my stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, so, you have some skills, but you really need to take some drawing classes and some life drawing classes." Because I was just like, emulating, poses that I would see, like John Byrne and Michael Gold and all those Bernie Wright and all those guys from like the 70s and stuff.
Yeah.
I would like look at their stuff and try to draw like them. So I told him, like, well, I can't go, afford to go to the big college. So he goes, go to Mesa Community. They have a great art program there. So that's really where I kind of went. Started taking more of my art classes, my first live drawing classes. I met some great teachers there that ended up, when I ended up going to ASU, one of my teachers, her husband was also a figure painter at there. And so I kind of latched up with him. Jerry Schutte, he's an amazing painter, figure painter. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go think I was going to go full board with my art. But at the same time, I was still in band. I did the whole gamut of, concert band, marching. I was in marching band, all that kind of stuff. And at some point I decided, okay, after we went to the Rose Bowl in '87, I said, I want to not be in band anymore. I'm just going to continue on with my music. With my art. And so I started focusing on art more, but I was also into computer graphics. And when I was in high school, my first computer I bought was a Texas Instrument 994A. And so I started doing some like basic programming and stuff. And so I was trying to do like graphics, but very simple stuff. And then I bought a PC Junior at home.
What made you want to jump into computers at that point? Because going from fine arts and drawing is one thing, but was there something that you saw or something that made you think I need to start learning computer graphics?
This is weird too. This like I took a computer programming course and I was a junior in high school. This was '81, and I just took it because it was a course. And then I saw some people doing some games, like writing the coding games, and I was like was coming from the how to get my drawings into the computer. Yeah. And we had to do stuff. We had to plot out in graph paper and program in that way. But it wasn't until I got to college where I started seeing some of the higher end stuff at that time, higher end, and I ended up getting a job at the PBS station, KET Channel 8, and that's where I really kind of got into doing video graphics. And they had a character generator, so I was trying to do. My assignment was I was doing stuff for a magazine. So I do all the artwork for the magazine. So I learned about a bunch of graphic design stuff from 2 women who worked there as graphic design students. Yeah. So I learned about cut and paste and do all the mock-up stuff, Blue Line, pre-computer. But they hired me because they knew that I was doing Macintosh stuff. So they had gotten a Mac 2.
Oh wow!
And we had this is right when Quark Express came out, and I was doing Illustrator. And so they were like, I was like, hey, you guys should be doing this. Like, this is a new thing called PostScript. You guys should be doing this stuff, and we can get this stuff printed up instead of having to do all this like cut and paste stuff and use like the stat cameras and stuff. And they had a full blown darkroom that I got to use too, which is awesome. My boss at the time, he was like, if you were going to take a photography class, you have your own private darkroom here. So they had like 2 Nikon bodies and everything. So I did it. I cleaned out the darkroom because it was being used as storage. So I had my own private, temperature controlled.
That's a pretty good gig.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
It was like my job. My
and they're kind of allowing you to do this Illustrator stuff on the side while you're doing all this other. Wow, that's.
So I had 2 jobs in school. I worked at the TV station. I also was a staff artist for the newspaper. I was doing like political comics for them and stuff like that. So while I was working at the TV station, I was doing video graphics on a character generator, and I would design stuff, and I have to put it under a camera and capture 4 colors, and then I was doing like 2.5D animation, color cycling stuff to make it look like 3D because I really want to do 3D really bad. And so we got an alias system in very early on. So I remember the first time I could do Fong shaded imagery, I was like blown away. Yeah. And then I would go over to the engineering section of the school to use CATIA. And this is when they had a dial box. So I had to do a dial box to do XYZ translation rotation. And so I remember I did a model of the Enterprise, and I brought in my Super 8 camera because I wanted to do animation really bad.
Was that your first 3D model? Was the Enterprise?
I don't think it was that. It was probably my name extruded or something like that. But I remember using CATIA and bringing my camera in and reverse engineering camera moves to try to do and shoot frame by frame. And then over in the architecture building, they had intelligent light software running on a what was it? Apollo systems. So I had to learn a little bit of C programming to do that one. Excuse me. Getting over a cold here. Yeah. So I was all over the campus at the same time doing my drawing and painting.
That's nuts.
And I was pulled in 2 directions because I was like, I wanted to be a serious artist, but I was lured to the computer graphics end of things. And even in the art art building. They had like a Cubicom system.
By serious artist, you mean like fine art? Fine art.
Yeah, like I was gonna be a painter and like go through that whole thing.
Right.
But I the lure of computer graphics, I was like, I really loved that as well. And I kind of got into animation because I wanted to do the figure in motion because I was doing figure painting and drawing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I got into animation. So I was doing a bunch of stuff with it at the TV station. And then through a series of fortunate events, people I worked with at the station, one of the guys who was a director there, his wife used to work in the art department. Her name is Rhonda Olson, and she started a company called Rhonda Graphics. And they had a space up in North Phoenix. So after school, Scott and I would hop in his car. We did a political show every night for the station. And when we were done with that, we would head up north, and they got a wavefront system. And his brother Lauren, who was my age, was a computer science major. So we had like all these different talents merging. Like Rhonda was a graphic designer. I was from the kind of fine art computer graphics. Lauren was a graphics programmer, and Scott was like cameraman and director. And we all kind of merged.
Yeah.
And we were doing local graphics for like the local Phoenix community.
Wow.
Using Wavefront.
Interesting.
And so that's how I got my start doing like professional high-end 3D stuff. So I worked with them for 7 years.
Yeah.
And we did a bunch of like, car commercials and, local stuff. And then we started getting known for doing like arena opens.
Oh,
Remember the time when everyone was using the Allen Parsons theme to like the Bulls had that big opening? So we did when the Suns moved into the new stadium, when Charles Barkley came to town, we did a big thing for them, and then we ended up doing a bunch of other stuff for like the Cardinals and things like that.
Interesting. It's just there's like a chain of events that happened that it could have gone any direction. Yeah. Really, it's just kind of, I would imagine this is the thing that I was trying to correlate is whatever it is, you were driven. You probably were like this as a kid. You're just trying all kinds of different things. With a goal in mind at the time, there was really only so many things you could do in entertainment. Comic books is probably one of the most, until that became an on-screen format, and 3D was capable of doing that. But it's just interesting, like everybody that you guys, you're a part of that core group of people that were just pioneering and doing the thing before it was a thing. You kind of made it into something, which kind of gave way to things like ZBrush and digital sculpting, and 3D modeling is now a career, that you can do.
Well, I went to SIGGRAPH. My first SIGGRAPH was in 1987 in Anaheim.
That was the first SIGGRAPH you went to?
First SIGGRAPH, and I went as a student
volunteer.
What was it
like? Was it at the convention center?
It was in Anaheim. And
okay.
I'll never forget it because I had like read like CG World. And I had known a certain amount. Like we got all the demo reels in and watch all the stuff. And so the pioneering days of like PDI and RGA and all that kind of stuff, watching and stuff. And I remember going to pick that first time, and Pixar had a booth where they were still selling hardware at the time, and they had the clown from Red's Dream in a run cycle loop.
Yeah. On
this monitor, and I was like,
did they still give out the teapot?
Oh, they still give out the teapot, but they didn't start that until
that was later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
was that before they actually did the teapot? Before the teapot became a thing, 87. I don't know when that actually.
I can't remember when the teapot's been out for maybe 15, 20 years now.
That was like around the time when they were doing their first like practice animations. What were the shorts that they did? There was a couple of shorts. I can't remember.
Well, they did like what was the one with the baby, with the big?
Yeah, there was that one, and then there's one that I'm thinking of though. It's before it was the.
Well, Red's Dream was the one with the unicycle and the clown.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's when I saw the clown from Red's Dream on a run cycle at their booth, and I was like running around like being a student volunteer and stuff. And I was like, when I saw that the day before the thing had something, like, oh my god, here I am at SIGGRAPH, this huge. And SIGGRAPH was huge back in the day. I mean, they used to have like 3 big exhibition halls.
Oh, it's bigger than it is now.
And now it's kind of shorter.
Right.
It's kind of gotten smaller, and then it's kind of like expanded a little bit more. But I've seen it fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so I've been going there. So then, I remember I was after 7 years at Rhonda Graphics. I wanted to go to New York really bad, and I was thinking about going back to grad school. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna go and maybe paint in New York and do that.
Yeah.
Because I was still doing my art side by side with my computer graphics, and then I ended up having 4 different opportunities for jobs in New York. So I said, well, I've been working employed for 7 years. I don't know if I want to go to be a starving artist right away. So I said I should have a job when I go there.
Was that kind of the thought process, like between doing fine arts and drawing compared to computer graphics? Did you think fine arts was going to be more of the starving artist kind of lifestyle, or
I honestly didn't know. I mean, I kind of realized that it was probably going to be something like that, but
yeah,
because I wanted to do computer graphics too, and I was working in it. I can see that. I was like, okay, I'm still using my art skills in computer graphics, so I'm using that. I always remember there was like I had this back and forth between, because like some of my close knit friends in college where I always kind of felt like, oh, Steve's kind of like not full blown into it. He's got his hands also in this other world. So I kind of felt like I was kind of fighting this whole thing. It's like, like I want to be a serious artist, but can a
Right.
serious artist use computers? It's like that's like a weird thing, and now
Yeah.
I'm like, of course you can. It's like, but going through that, you had to go through that kind of
Sure,
personal struggle
that's
to
a
figure
weird.
out.
It's a transition you have to kind of really make a decision on and be comfortable with it.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
like and being able to make money
Yeah.
and survive with your skills was like, hey, I could do that in computer graphics. So
Mm-hmm.
when I went to New York, I ended up working at Blue Sky, and that was a big change for me because here I am now I'm at a major studio, and I'm getting to like just focus and really hone my character skills. Like I was an animator there for 7 years, and did that, and then in 2001, there was this big layoff that happened right before Ice Age came out, and I was amongst this huge layoff. But it's kind of a mix of blessing because then I got to end up working in the city. I was like doing a reverse commute out of the city for 7 years,
Oh wow.
and
Where were they located?
they were. I was in Austin for 2 years. Then we moved to Harrison,
Mm-hmm.
and then White Plains, and now they're in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Okay.
And they have a nice big studio
Yeah.
there. I got to see that right when they moved in.
Yeah.
But yeah. So when I had this transition from not working at Blue Sky, I got to end up directing at Hornet. One of the guys that used to work at Blue Sky is an executive producer there, and he asked me to come on board. So I was over there for a couple years, and I got to do some really cool, groundbreaking commercials with them. I did some cool spots for like BMW and Quaker Oats.
Did I guess with all these tools, all this large tool set that you have, was that kind of what helped you get into directing? I mean, because directing is, you really have to. It's more of a way of organizing and thinking for everybody else, right? So you had to kind of understand all the pipelines, which probably made you a
Exactly.
perfect fit for a director.
Yeah, when I was at Blue, here's the thing. I should back up a little bit. I think it's really important for a lot of kids today to hear this too. When I got my start, I was wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So I was like doing storyboards and doing modeling and animation and doing a certain amount of look dev. And then it was only really 2 or 3 of us doing all the stuff at the small company. But then when I went to Blue Sky, I got to kind of focus a little bit more.
Right.
So I focused on just animation and character design.
Yeah.
And then when I got into doing some directing, I had a really good overall view of like what the pipeline involved. So I could, being someone who was involved in it, I could talk to the agency in a way where I can tell them, okay, this is what we need to describe to the client.
Yeah.
And here's what we need to show in Animac, and we need to get stuff approved because we can't animate more than
Right, because you understood all of
Yeah.
those things, and you would spend time doing a little bit of everything, basically.
Yeah, so
modeling,
all that-
animating, and all that.
that 14 years of me working for different companies
Yeah.
totally paid off.
Yeah.
And then I was able to kind of oversee stuff and work with a group of guys, which I love. But I still like want to like. I still like to have my hands in the project, so I want to do something. So I'll animate a couple shots here, or I'll help doing the storyboard.
Is it hard for you to let go of some things?
It is.
Because you seem like you're very hands-on. You like to get into
That's the
those
artist
things.
part. That's the artist part. Where like
Yeah.
you do everything yourself, but when you're in a big team, you have to kind of like delegate. And
Right.
delegation is hard when you kind of like know how to do it and you just want to do it. But
Yep.
you
I have
kinda
a hard
to-
time with that
It's back
all
and
the
forth.
time.
So I did that for a couple of years with them. Then I ended up doing some more freelance, and then I got another gig at Guava, which was a new post house that was associated with Nice Shoes.
Okay.
And so they hired me to help set up a new 3D department, and then we were a small, nimble team, but we did it for a couple of years, and then I was kind of getting a little complacent there, and like we weren't getting the jobs I wanted in, and it was very corporate stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just like, I was getting to the point where I'm like, man, I'm just not happy here anymore, and I really wanted to leave and do
Is it kind of
something new.
stifling your creativity a little, just that atmosphere?
Sort of, yeah. And this is right around the time where I started coming up with the Sketchbot blog, and it was like 2007. So I need to start doing my own thing now. So I was spending all these years doing other people's work, and I think it took me a while to finally figure out that now I finally have a voice of things that I want to start saying, and I wasn't getting an opportunity to do it, and I just got to the point where it's like I need to like just kind of cut free.
Yeah.
Go freelance again. In New York, being a freelancer in New York was easy because I had all the connections. Like I could get work. It wasn't going to be a big deal to quit my full-time gig. I mean, yeah, you get the security of it, but I was like, I just need to get out. So I did it, and I started this blog, and I started just being. This was like when the blogs were just a new thing, and like social media hadn't even started yet.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of like, let me put stuff out there and see if I can get a following. Just being very transparent, showing how I'm designing stuff, and I did this whole range of things, and like I did a sculpt of the character first. I did all the wrong things, and that was like my first Comic-Con, and showed it around, and it got picked up onto the toy blogs. And
Oh wow.
and then that whole thing kind of like skyrolled into this thing where I was like, I really wanted to do a toy for the longest time.
Yeah.
And there was a really great boutique brick and mortar store in the East Village called My Plastic Heart, and I used to live right around. I used to live in Alphabet City when I was in New York, so I would go over there all the time and talk to the owners, Vince and Vicky, and they would have these little shows. So it was like it was like a small little like shoehorn place. They're still there, and like one side of the store is a gallery space. It's a wall, and the other side is like where the product sits, and then they have like the register at the end.
That's cool.
It's a little storefront.
What's it called again?
My Plastic Art.
Yeah, shout out to them.
They're out of a house, and yeah.
Cool.
And
have you tried to get Sketchbot in there? Do they have it?
Oh yeah, we had the opening there.
Oh, that's perfect.
We had the opening. That's
amazing.
We had the first custom show there.
That's so cool.
So Vince actually, he was like, "Here, do this guy's toy and get in a show." And it was there's a really amazing artist name. His name is Kano, and he works at Warner Brothers right now. He's out here, but he did this really cool little thing called it was a little fist character. I can't remember the name of it. Money Fist, I think it was Money Grip. And so I got to do my first custom, and I wasn't a customizer. These people who do these custom toys were like a lot of like graffiti artists and artists at the time.
Yeah.
And here I am, I'm like doing this show like with these big names like Sket One and Mad and all these like other artists that I kind of like I'm starting to learn about these people in this underground scene, like the Kid Robot scene.
Oh yeah. So
then then that first year I did like 8 custom shows all throughout New York, and people like knew me as like the guy doing but he's also doing this thing called Sketchbot. It's his robot toy. So then that kind of steamrolled, and then in the winter of 2008, I ended up using Maya to do the full blown what you see now. That was all modeled, and I did a 3D print of that, and that was like my masters and everything. And then I had put together some funding to get my own toy done, which nowadays it's almost impossible to kind of get that kind of money on your own. But I did it. If I was to do another version of it, I'd probably do a Kickstarter for the next version of it. But so I did the toy. Came out in 2010. We had a big show in New York. I had a custom show where I actually had all the blanks, and 50 artists came out. We did that one. Then we did another show in LA the year I moved out, and then from there we released those. So those are available like online. There's still some left, but we're pretty much almost sold out from the whole thing. But it was a good venture.
Did you have any? Because Sketchbot it is in that vein of that underground style, like that Kid Robot. A lot of like simple shapes, but you're still telling a story to a certain degree, and a lot of it has to do with the expression or the eye and all these things. But did you have any like styles in mind before you came to this, or was there like what drove you to do this kind of style?
So I've always been into robots, retro stuff, and I'm a big Gigantor fan. So right off the bat, the eye is the dead set eye, the stare of Gigantor, and the rivets. The rivets are a throwback to the 1950s retro robots. So I had done these sketches of a robot probably like 10, 15 years earlier. And it was always in the back of my head. I was always drawing robots and stuff. So when I wanted to do the toy, I was trying to think of like what was out there already. I think I got into the toy scene right at the peak when like there's still new stuff being done, and like no one was doing a robot toy, and everyone was doing like graffiti stuff, like there was fat caps and spray cans and roller stuff.
And
like Cause I love.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I wanted to do something. I wanted to contribute something that was new.
Right.
So my thing was like a robot with the art bots, and instead of just slapping a color on and calling it a colorway, which a lot of people were doing at the time, I want to do something more unique. So I gave each one a unique accessory.
There you go. There's some water for you.
Thank you. And a unique accessory and a unique expression. And that's where I kind of learned a lot about the toy world, like about how to maximize your molds and what you need to do. A good friend of mine, DaCosta Bailey, aka Chocolate Soup, you probably aware of him as Marshall Robots.
Yes, definitely.
He was my early toy mentor, and he helped me as I was designing this stuff. Give me some tips about some certain things. Like I was going to have one eye kind of carved into the mold. And it was like, hey, why don't you think about, I know you want to do multiple colorways. Why don't you think about it as a pad print? I'm like, what's a pad print? Oh yeah, it's a screen print that's going to be put on. This way you can use the same mold, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Right. As far as production goes, that simplifies your process.
You learn all these things, yeah. And then I ended up hiring Jeremy Maddle, who he goes by Mad, and he does the really cool Maddles. It's a MADL, and it's a little box. The box-shaped head on a simple platform. Okay, and that's his staple toy that he's done for years, and I love that stuff. And so I hired him to be my producer. He was the liaison between myself and the factories in China. So he's done that work before. So everything would go through him. He's in Kansas City, so I would send him the prototypes and everything, and he would send it off. And then we get 2 sets back. He keep wanting to send them to me, and then I make my notes, and so that's how we did the toy. Where was I going with this?
Well, I mean,
so the thing is, that's how I kind of came up with the idea of Sketchbot. Was it was like this, it's something unique. Coming up with a name also was something that I was like, and nowadays, how do you come up with something unique? It's like everything's taken, but I just have like
Sure.
sketching. My love of sketching and robots, I kind of put the two together and came up with the Sketchbot.
It makes sense. And I was curious because I've seen you have all of your. Actually, would you mind pulling up pull up the site? You have a section on your page just in your sketches.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to talk about a ton of these, but like your drawing style is a little bit more, detailed, and it seems like you have a wide range of skills. So you kind of focus on this probably because you were just trying to define your own style, right? Like, I'm just curious how you feel about how important that separating yourself from everybody else or having a particular style. Has this kind of become your thing, or do you kind of have any ideas? Because I've seen you do realistic, like real sculpts, or you did the pumpkin head guy. You can sculpt more realistic stuff, but you seem to gravitate towards lately in the last few years, like this kind of style.
It's weird. I don't think anybody sets out to say I have a style that I'm trying to hit. I think for me, it was I like to think I see things volumetrically. That's why I think I've always been drawn to computer graphics. So when I draw, and it's always, I was thinking about this the other night. Every time I start up a new sketch and I just like goof around, I'm always drawing like cylinders and extruding, and I start shading volumes. I automatically start thinking in volumes.
That's just your natural.
That's my natural way of how I learn to do more drawing.
Yeah.
So with this character, and I love like the last couple of years, like the big trend is like all these like heavy mechs and all the detailed stuff.
Right, exactly.
The District 9, the chappy stuff.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is because I think you're fully capable of getting to that level, but it seems like you prefer this kind of simplistic, but telling that story.
My thing is creating complication through this simple, more simple.
Right.
I'm just screwing up the term I want to try to say, but I just talked about this the other day with someone. Just trying to show more complication via simpler shapes.
Right.
So
you're spending more time thinking about it. It's a lot of people push past the simple shapes as that's just their base mesh and they go into detail. But you're spending more time really diving in and thinking about the importance of how many rivets you have around the belt. Too many might be too much detail. Right. Yeah. You have to kind of find that right mix. I would imagine in the stripes on the arms. Like having a level of threes or matching with the legs. Like that stuff is important. I'm sure a lot of that you spend a lot of time thinking about those things.
Absolutely,
I would guess.
Yeah.
If you go to his view work, there's a section called I think Robot Sketches or something along those lines.
Sketches. Yeah, we can check it out here.
Yeah, mech sketches. Let's check those out because we can talk about all kinds of things.
Let's talk about mech sketches real quick.
It's a halfway down and then like below 2014.
There you go.
Right now.
I think these were just a bunch of symmetry bots I was doing. There you go.
So you always kind of sketch things out first? Always.
Oh, all the time. Yeah. And that's one of the cool things about also because I was using Sketchbook Pro on the Mac for these because it has a symmetry tool. That's one of the nice things about ZBrush too, because ZBrush has symmetry. It's all symmetry based, so you can basically kind of sketch this out in 3D as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll set these out in 2D. And these a lot of times these are just happy accidents. I just go, you can just like flip through these really quickly. These are just like goofing around with ideas, and
I like this one a lot. That's awesome.
Some of these may turn into ideas for 3D. Like this one, I started modeling this one a while back.
You did a prototype for the leg, right?
Yeah,
I think I've seen that.
Yeah. But again, it's just these are just goofing around.
Yeah, and you're doing this stuff like you had one of your the one with the 3 arms. I think you did that at the dinner table on a napkin.
Yeah. So what it was
I love it.
The Buddhabot was based on this guy. I was thinking about doing
Buddhabot.
doing a modification on him, and it came to me like, oh yeah, I want to just use the 6 accessories that we have. And so this
so
one here,
awesome. I love the render.
I would like to do this one in production. And I'm thinking about maybe doing a Kickstarter for this one.
Yeah.
Because I want to do like gold plated for it and a nice kind of chrome, black chrome, black metal on that.
So when you got into this point, you've got Sketchbots out, you're selling it, you're all over the place with this one. And then at some point, I think it was 2013, 2014, you did a whole series on, what is it, March of Robots?
March of Robots, yeah.
March of Robots, which... March of Robots, there's a section.
Why don't you go to Bottober first? If you go to Bottober.
Yeah, Bottober. Okay, start with that.
Go up, right there.
One more up.
One more up. Oh, one more down.
I want 2 up.
2 up. There you go, right there, Bottober.
Need to get you some binoculars over there.
So
hold on, I got it.
So let me backtrack a little bit. So, and people who are watching this, I'm going to give a lot of props to all the people I'm following.
Yeah, please do.
So Jake Parker is an amazing artist.
I have his Captain America up at my office. I bought it at CTN.
So he started Inktober. And then I started doing that in 2012. And then the next year, DaCosta Bailey, Chocolate Soup, wanted to also do something original. He came up with Marcher robots. So one's in October, one's in March. So in October of 2013, I just finished a big freelance gig, and I was like, I'm gonna devote my Inktober, but I'm gonna try to kill two birds with one stone and do also Marcher robots.
Yeah.
But of course, because I'm over ambitious, I'm gonna do 3D models. So what I
do it all in 3D.
So what I did was I would do a sketch in the morning really quick. And these were just like
That's one a day, right?
I had no preconceived notion. I just jump in. So the beginning was all kind of like they you can tell that they're just kind of like whatever they are. I started having a little bit of a design language I started to come up with. And then they start, like, from this point on, they start getting a little bit more, okay, they start feeling like they're part of a group. Let me start maybe introducing some narrative into them. So I'll do a quick drawing, go into 3D, spend about 3 hours, no more than 3 or 4 hours in 3D. And then I was also at the time learning Keyshot. I had gotten a eval copy of Keyshot, and I was really like, okay, now's my time to really start learning this program.
Right.
And I love Keyshot because it's so quick.
It's very fast.
Are really fast.
Right.
And at the time I was using Mental Ray. It took forever to set up an IBL and get this look. Whereas in Keyshot, you just drag and drop, and I'm like done.
Yeah.
And I do a little bit of tweaking in Photoshop, and I post them. So I was doing these one a day, and I had a blast with these. So later that year, I attended my first CTN Expo, and they had this portfolio option to post, and I was late, and this one let me get in time to post them. And I had heard from the Jim Henson Company had said, "Hey, we love your stuff. We want to talk to you at CTN." So when I went to the tent there, and they were like, I had like a 5-minute meeting with them, like, "Hey, we really like these robots you're doing. We want to do an animated show with you on these
based on Bottober."
Based on Bottober stuff, and I was like, "Okay, cool." So then that started a whole relationship of posting stuff online in a portfolio.
Go through the March of Robots too, because there's some good ones in there.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a meeting, and then
one more down.
It took a couple months for us to kind of finally start to talk to everyone at the studio. But at the time, I was also doing Marcher robots. So I
love this, man. This is so cool.
These,
you shoot all your you shoot all your plates, right? You shoot all this on your own.
Yeah. So for the majority of my shot, the first two I did. If you go forward, the first two I did. I found this plate online, and then the second plate I found. And then once I did that, I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do these little mini bots. I'm going to integrate them with live action. So then after here, I shot all my plates, and then. These are all using the Can default HDRI. So you'll notice that some of these don't even match the environments, but I tweak them a little bit. And I adjust the colors. I adjust the height to get them to work.
Right.
And then early last year, I got my first Ricoh Theta S, the little 360 camera. So I use that now all the time to shoot my HDRs. But so this took them a little bit more of a design element.
I love that you're telling each one of them. You're telling a story, and it's impressive because you're doing this like every day for a month. Yeah. Where do you? I mean, do you ever just like hit a roadblock, or do you just have ideas going on, and I'm just jotting them down?
I do have roadblocks, and the thing is, I think every time I start Inktober, I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then it usually takes me a couple days before
if it were me, I'd be thinking in like February, be like, okay, I'm going to do all these ones, and then I'd figure out instead of like throw all that pressure on you. Like it's like Monday's here. What do I do?
And you know what? With me, I work best under pressure. I've always been like that all throughout my life. I'm like, it'll be a deadline. I'm like, the last couple days, I'm like, and I start jamming and I get it done. And sometimes, like, I'll put stuff together like at last minute, and people think like, oh man, you must think you have a long time to. I'm like, no, I kind of did that like in an hour or two. It's like,
well, I guess when you have that time crunch, I think it's good for any 3D art, any artist in general, to if there's a challenge or something online or something, to just do it, because everybody that I see doing this, people will. You really push yourself to try something new. And those people that are kind of like, I just can't get my workflow down, I'm not ready, doesn't matter. Just do it, because you'll find that you'll figure it out.
During this time frame, I had never really worked as a concept artist where like, I'm like just banging out concepts for something.
Yeah.
In the past, I've had the luxury to like do sketches for clients, like if we're doing commercial work. I'd have like, a couple days to prepare stuff. But I know that a lot of the concept artists, they're like, the whole big thing is like, oh, I work really fast and I get stuff. Because like that's how it works.
Yeah, the concept world is really nuts.
But it's nuts. But I also tend to think that that's a little bit exaggerated, because I'm not sitting there cranking out 20 things in an hour.
Yeah.
But I worked at studios where I've seen people crank stuff out 20.
Sure.
I'm like, come on, you're blowing my mind.
Our first guest on the podcast was Justin Goby Fields, and he was talking about I forget which project it might have been.
Goby's a beast.
Yeah, and he's doing 8 characters in a day or whatever, and he basically just going through sculpting a ton and then painting over in Photoshop, and he finds a good mix of sculpture and paint to do it, but you have to have a workflow. You don't just crank that stuff out. If you're doing it all 2D, you could probably do a ton if you're top grade artist, but
excuse me,
this kind of stuff takes a lot more
So what I was going to say what this was that Keyshot enabled me to get these done really quickly. So I was able to start thinking about like, okay, let me start thinking about a composition today and think about what I would do.
Is the depth of field Keyshot depth of field, or are you doing that post?
This was a Keyshot depth of field.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Some of them I would shoot depth of field in camera because I wanted to shoot it in camera. I had
because the render time with depth of field is pretty nuts. It gets up there.
It's really fast though in Keyshot.
It is fast, but I mean, if you could, it'll look great after like an hour. But if you add that extra 6 hour, let it go overnight or whatever,
these
still
renders,
it looks
like
good.
10-minute renders.
That's amazing. That's impressive.
And here's the thing: I'm not doing anything really crazy. I'm doing like some of the basic. These are like the basic materials.
Yeah.
Nowadays, now I dive in and start using the material graph. You can go for it, Kyle. But like with these, the cool thing was just trying to find something that would match. Like I would be out and about somewhere. I'm like, oh, and this would be a good location to shoot for a character, and I would just go out and shoot them.
Yeah.
And so, like for instance, here, like I actually used ZBrush on this one because I did the Conan ZBrush and I did the painting with poly paint.
Oh, yeah, with the little dirt on the bottom.
Yeah.
And, yep.
So for me, it's like because I was more comfortable doing some of the hard surface stuff early on in Maya, I would just do these really quickly because I was able to pose them easier. But then whenever I can find a chance, I would go into ZBrush and use it for whatever. So like for these, I would use it for like the cones.
And then using the plugin to just send it all over really quick with paint and everything.
Exactly, yeah. And like this was like fun. This was for the 25th anniversary of Hellboy. I kind of want to see if I can get permission from Mike Mignola to do a.
Dude, this was my favorite one of this series. I loved the Hellboy bot. This is so cool. I love it.
That was fun to work on.
You should get this license somehow. I can't imagine that they wouldn't love it. Have you showed it to them?
I haven't showed it to him yet.
Guillermo del Toro? Or
I need to show it to somebody.
Ron Perlman actually works out at the gym that I go to, Gold's Gym. He's in there all the time.
Are they doing a Hellboy 3?
Yeah, supposedly. I hope so. That's one of my favorite franchises. It doesn't get enough appreciation, I feel like. Like film nerds, like sci-fi nerds love it, but like the general public didn't quite hit. It's a little weird, it's a little different, so.
Hey, let me backtrack. Go to the bottom, Kyle. To see the Tiki Bot, third up from the bottom. I want to
Tiki Bot was
go to Tiki Bot. I want to
one more
there.
Right there.
I want to talk about this one because this was me doing a custom based on the Sketchbot toy, and this was something that this was one of the early ZBrush. After I was kind of getting really, really fluent with ZBrush,
I love
this was a good project I did, and I think I was invited to talk about this at an early CTN with you guys.
Yep, you did. Yeah. I remember seeing this because you gave a presentation
so the cool
on
thing
it.
about this one is here I am now. I'm taking my platform and doing a custom, but I'm doing it all in 3D.
Yeah,
and so I was able to take this, and we had just gone to Hawaii, our first trip to Hawaii, a couple months before that, and I had done some drawings, and I did this little Tiki Bot.
Yeah,
and I was like, I got to do this in 3D. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to now take this model that I had the base mesh already done, bring it into ZBrush, and then start adding all the little grooves.
Did you use slash brush?
I used I think orb cracks to do the clean cuts, and then
orb cracks is good. Those are free.
Forward a couple on this. You'll.
Oh, do you?
Oh yeah. So if you go forward a couple, I'll show you what I did as far as This is my first model. I think that I used the new Dynamesh tools to do the create shell command.
Yes.
To prep for 3D printing.
Right. You hollowed everything out.
Yeah. If you go forward, I think I have a breakdown of that. Go a couple forward here.
A little shinier. There's a sketch.
And if you go forward, that's
here we go.
That's the base mesh being posed. Go forward another one. There's the everything that was done in ZBrush.
You do all your keys in ZBrush?
Did all the keys in ZBrush. I think I brought this back into Maya though for something. Just I was testing something out. And if you go back to the next one, I think then you'll see. Oh yeah, and then I'm doing the
stamping on the bottoms.
Stamping, yeah. And then go forward, you'll see two prints. There you go. So that's actually the print.
What printer did you print this out on?
These were done. I got these done at Shapeways, so it was like using their.
It's all PLA.
Material. I think it was.
Yeah, that's what he was just saying.
So that was a fun one to do, and so that for me that was like, okay, now I'm using ZBrush fully to take everything through and preparing all the 3D printing stuff with it. Had a blast doing that one.
I mean, really, it's a lot of insert mesh, right? You're doing at that time it's Dynamesh. Using Dynamesh to subtract all those keys out, and there's Dress Piggy. There's
I also do little Shapeways guys.
This is taking me back. This was 2-3 years ago.
Is that Kyle?
Yep,
posing
that's Kyle posing. It was supposed to be me, and I was sick that day, so they threw Kyle in there, and then it's just been Kyle's now the poster boy for all of our merchandise. Oh, that's right. Kyle just started, and we're like, okay, you're going to do a photo shoot for all of our stuff. He's like, okay.
So if you go, Kyle, really quickly, go down to ZBrush sketches, and right there. I just put the one up. Nope, one up. Right there. You go. I just put these are old. So I look at some of these, and some of them are really old
these.
and really bad.
Sure,
but
just
these
quick
are
sculpts.
These are just a bunch of sculpts I did to put on the website. So like, I look at some of these going. Another thing. Here's another thing that a lot of beginners I wanted to talk to them about too is like I got into the same trap where I'm like, oh yeah, I should just sculpt everything out of one Dynamesh sphere and do it all one. But then you got to start thinking like, you know what? You don't need to be latched onto that. You think about using subtools and think about adding different things. So I think you get too excited about wanting to sculpt everything out of one.
I think at a base beginner level, it's important to figure out how to control just a single mesh, because that forces you to try a lot of things. But as you start to master anything, you can break that process down now, and you don't have to do that.
This was a fun piece because this one.
Yeah, this is the one I was referencing earlier.
So I had this book from a kid called The Pumpkin Giant. I remember I loved it. It was this great story.
This is for the Sculpt Off, right?
No. This was just a thing I did on my own. And
Sculpt Off was a monkey.
I would like to try to see if I can contact the original artist who did this and see if I can get a license to maybe do a little maquette of that.
Yeah, it's a cool piece.
It was fun. It was a nice little. This is me like finally learning about using different subtools and stuff, and doing all the doing fabric and like stamping on like the burlap on and things like that. It was kind of fun.
I was gonna call out surface noise with UVs, but so did you find a nice brush with that material?
No, I think I just ended up doing this. I think I ended up using the Surface plugin.
The Noisemaker plugin. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, this is a great piece. Oh, this is interesting.
That was I think I can't remember. I think I was again playing with the surface distortions. I came up with some weird choral thing. So again, this is like early key shot renders too. So I was like just playing around with the depth of field and stuff.
Yeah, but I love it. It's happy accident right there.
Talking about and this is again these like I love like looking at like Fod Quadri and Tony Leonard and all those guys doing like the hard shell and the R's really nice mech stuff.
Yeah.
And so here I am like trying to do it all with one thing, but then I'm learning about panel loops when edge loops and panels came out, and that's a whole other thing. So then I started doing a bunch of other things with that, which you'll see later. But we should segue into what I did for the key shot.
Yeah, the key shot avatar was a great piece,
which is the first thing on the list there.
And it seems like all this time you're kind of in like continuing to push that style. This piece I love.
I loved when they commissioned me to do this, because I was like, now this is me finally getting to do like a real mech. Everyone knows me as a cute toy guy, but
you wanted to push it a little bit more.
So I got to do a nice design stage with this. I think I spent like 3 weeks back and forth with sketches and really trying to figure out like what I want to do with, like for this unique idea for like how this guy would move with these like ankle centered wheels and stuff. But it was fun. So I had a really good time doing this for them, and they use this now for their avatar.
There's all kinds of different variations you have of this too.
Oh, it's so fun to play with like the different materials, and I was doing these little teaser images on Instagram. I was like popping in a joint here or a detail there.
Yeah. Have you ever, I mean, as far as final process, I'm sure it's different, but like conceptually just doing in 3D, doing stuff in ZBrush, just quick and dirty, just blocking out the shapes and things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, so for instance, for this little guy here on the desk here, that was all done in ZBrush. That was another moment of me actually saying, okay, I want to try to do a total mech in like a toy in ZBrush using everything. And like keying it and everything, and like usually for me, when I'm doing a lot of client work, it's like it has to be rigged up and posed and animated. So I need to kind of like I usually start my base meshes in Maya, so I kind of have a known coordinate system. I have hierarchies that I can move around and test things out, knowing that I also have to rig these things up at some point. So I have to bring them back in, and they have to kind of exist in this kind of like dimension, so I can get them to rig up. Right. But I'm trying to, whenever I can, I go into ZBrush. So I'm like, for this one, I was like, I'm going to just do this mech in ZBrush. So I did everything was like, I was using the Dynamesh extensively to like do all the cuts and kind of create all the negative shapes for like where the head was in the chest and stuff like that. So that was a fun example. Do you keep all your stuff in Dynamesh, or do you ever, once you get you ZRemesh everything and then polish everything up at the end of it? Yeah, I'll do is we're applicable. I'll do because like when I do ZRemesh, I kind of control with using the Z guides. Yeah. I like to get my edge flow. So if I need to then like crease something, or what's really nice for this stuff, like even at Dynamesh level, using Dynamesh with polish, which I don't know if a lot of people use that, but there's that polish option. Yeah. And you can go up into clay polish and you can turn the sharpness up. So every time you re-Dynamesh, all those hard edges that you've kind of laid in, they just become tighter and cleaner. And then when you ZRemesh,
that remesh algorithm picks up all that stuff, and you get a cleaner base mesh, and you're good to go. But this is cool, and you ended up printing this out, all the legs and all the body. Does the torso come off?
Yeah.
Or is
so this one was printed up in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces because I had the arms separated out as well. And this was not meant to be a toy because I think if I was going to be articulated, I have like the angle of the arms is like weird, so like it doesn't go like up and down; it kind of goes at an angle.
Right. Okay.
It was just me trying to play, and I was
but it's a prototype.
At the time, I had the Zortrax printer in the M200, which was a nice FGM printer at the time that I was using, and it has really nice tight resolution. But I'm always dogged by the staircasing, so we're talking about trying to put an acetone bath. So this is my first test at an acetone bath, and it smooths out really nicely. It's just
the result is
a couple minutes in
nice.
acetone vapors, and it really smooths out that plastic. And then I spray painted it and put some rub and buff on it to edge it up a little bit.
Did you go in with sandpaper or something to just kind of scratch out these edges?
No, that's just rub and buff.
Oh, it really is just right on top.
Yeah, just right on top.
That's
and then
awesome.
I'm currently testing the Moonray, the Sprint Ray Moonray printer.
We have the Moonray at work as well.
Yeah, and it's a nice one.
It's really nice. I love the material, just being able to do it with resin.
I just got the gray material.
Oh yeah,
and the gray material has a nice
nice
finish.
I was doing a Sebulba sculpt, and I broke it up into pieces, and it was kind of an accident, but I left it. I misunderstood how long you had to let it sit with the alcohol rub. And I let it sit for too long.
Did it dissolve?
It dissolved, but it dissolved in a really nice way. It gave it a really soft, kind of gentle, and I had a lot of like creases and things like that. So it took away some of the details, but I liked how it kind of had this sort of glow to it, because it's not as hardened. If you just take it in there for 20 seconds, take it back out. It's what you're supposed to do. I think I left it in there for like 20 or 30 minutes, but it was interesting. But it's funny with 3D printing. There's things that they tell you to do, but there's little tricks and things that people have found of how to get the best result. Like Drust, a guy, Joseph Drust, he's doing
ZBrush Master Beast.
Yeah, and he's doing stuff on, MakerBot Replicator 2 that I don't even think they produce anymore. And he just found like a great workflow, and it's fast and it's quick, and the details look just as good. And you might have to go through and spray a coat of paint on there, but it looks awesome. So you can get all kinds of great results, but it's a lot of time, dedication to figure that out. Like a lot of failed prints, you go through hundreds of, different prints until you get to that point.
The first Zortrack I had an error in the Z axis, and I had like an overnight render going of this head.
Yeah.
And it was like coming like really amazingly, and then I come back in the morning and it was like offset like an inch, and it was like all spaghetti. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Isn't that the worst? Yeah. You're waiting so long. When we were first getting printers in the office, we would all make jokes. We'd sit around, we'd just watch it print. And then like you'd go overnight and you'd come in and there like I'm notoriously like the guy that I have so many failed prints, and it's all different reasons, and each one is like, damn it. It's like, I got to do it again, and luckily they gave us a ton of material. So,
with the Moonray too, like I've had a couple times where if you have any residue on that platform, for prints, and
that's something that happened to me twice. And I would go through and I would check it. I would feel in there if there's resin in there. Sometimes you don't notice that layer, and that's messed up two of my prints. And I'm just like, I can't.
And I tried scraping. I had to scrape one off with a thing, and I ended up screwing up the membrane.
Oh
so you
no!
Another plate.
Yeah, that's tricks of the trade. You gotta learn how the machine works, and it's still I think it's amazing, but it's still not quite ready for the general public. I think. At this point, because there's just a lot of work that goes into it, which unless you're an artist and you really have a passion for it, you're just not going to dedicate enough time to figure that out.
My big thing too is like, people don't realize there's a lot of setup. You have to think about how your piece is going to be orientated.
Yes.
What support you're going to do. And you have to really think about hollowing out your pieces to save on material costs.
Exactly. Because that comes into play. A lot of setup
involved. And then once the print's done, then you got to clean them up. And cleanup is also involved because once you snip off that stuff, you have to always clean up the nibs.
Yep.
So for a while there, I was spoiled because I was just using Shapeways, and I would like say, here's what detail I want. They'll do the print.
They take care of it.
I'll set up the print, but then they do everything. When I'm at home, I'm finding myself spending a lot of time prepping the models, and then I'm like, oh man, now I got to clean this up at the end too. So
what have you found in your printing experience that's the best, that has the least amount of cleanup afterwards? Is there anything?
No, they all have the same amount of cleanup.
Yeah, each one is different. In my experience, each one has been different, but equally the same.
You still have to sand, or you have to, think about placement.
Yeah.
So you can. I try to like minimize.
Right, try and minimize where your
because on the
supports are going.
DLP printers it goes backwards. So if I'm going to have I try to make sure I have an opening, but is there an area for the resin to leak out, or to make sure it doesn't cure? So when you pour it out, so you got to think about that.
Yeah, like I was doing this Sebulba head, and the Moonray printer bed is more vertical space. There's a lot of Y space.
Sebulba wasn't Sebulba in the pod racer?
Yeah. So I did the pod racer one where it's like a bust with him in his pod racing armor on a Star Wars statue, but his head is really long and he's got all these long body parts. So I had to turn the head up, turn it at like 78 degrees to reduce the amount of supports, and it's just but I don't know about you, but I prefer having the resin to kind of sand down. I find that a little bit easier to manipulate. With PLA, with the plastic stuff, it's a little bit sturdier. You really
got to grind it out.
You really got to grind it out.
I use like a metal file to grind out first, and then I use like the 6 different grades of sand to get it down.
Yeah, like I have a whole bunch of like clay sculpting tools that I found that I could use to like chip pieces off. Then we have little clippers. And
when I did this guy, now this is like back in 2008 or 9, I sent off to this place and they used an Object Eden 360V, which is those are sweet machine. So when I got it back, it was pretty smooth already. I took a wet sanding to it to just kind of get the grit off, and it came out really nice. So those were pulled right from that. And also, I personally have not had anything print up on an EnvisionTech printer yet, but the EnvisionTechs are sweet as well.
Those actually,
Stupid Buddy Studios.
Stupid Buddy Studios. They invited us there to give us a tour of the studio.
Been there too, it's
amazing. And did you know their the room where they have the ZBrushers and the printer? Yeah. It seems like they just have a perfect workflow now. They just kick it out, and the cleanup doesn't seem to be that much, and all their stuff looks amazing. It's really cool. But I would pay so much money just to go in there and like pick their brains on specifics about every little detail. Them and Legacy FX. Yeah, Legacy. Who's the guy that runs their stuff? He's the printer. I forget his name, but the guy is like the master of figuring out. He understands all printers. He knows the workflow. He knows how to clean it up, how to simplify everything, and that's like all comes from experience. And that's something we can't. Most of us don't have the time to do. We only have so much. You can take a day to clean it up, and if it takes more than that, it's like, okay, I'll do it next Saturday or whatever your free time is.
Right.
But speaking of this, I do.
Hey, Kyle, why don't you go to 3D miscellaneous? There's some other stuff there. The third one down from the top. You can third one down from the top. Yeah, you can go right there. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw this section.
I think this one. I think I have that one rendered out.
Oh, then I must have.
This one, that Octobot, we actually we're selling that as a 3D print through the Mold 3D guys. You can buy an FDM or an SLA version of this as a print.
This one's awesome. I love this guy.
That was again this play I shot at the beach.
Did you? I was gonna say, did you shoot this?
I went to the beach.
What beach were you at?
Venice.
Oh, okay.
Because I live right down there from. So that was like shoot it up there and bring it home the plate and try to do something with it.
I'm just a little bit further south in Manhattan Beach.
Nice,
but it's dude, it's awesome. I love that you shoot all this stuff on your own. It's since you've gotten that camera. You guys ever out to dinner or lunch or whatever, and you just disappear and go shoot something?
Even if I have my iPhone, I'll try to take a picture.
Yeah,
just to think about it for reference. Yeah.
Right. Oh, these ones are cool. I haven't seen this one.
This is fun. This is a little ornament bot.
That one's awesome. All of these things. There was one in particular. I'm trying to think of which one it was. Not Buddhabot. Beats by Dre. Check. I want to go to that one. It's the.
Wait. Finish this. I think I have that guy rendered in real quick. I just want to see if I got that. This was that was a mock-up for a cover of 3D World magazine that didn't get accepted. We did the other one. We did the Buddhabot character.
This one's great. It's got that Willy Wonka feel to it.
Thanks. There was the leg for that. So that was a using Substance Painter, which I love.
Yes, Substance is very fun.
This is really old school stuff. I just threw this on here because I had some 3D stuff, but this all old polygon modeling from probably 15, 20 years ago.
Oh wow.
This one, this one was done in Mental Ray. I need to rebring this back into KeyShot now and re-update it.
Are any of these commissions, or do you just do these around the holidays? Is it just something that you like to do?
I try to do them. I try to do stuff and I was oh shoot, here's the holidays. I should have something new to put.
Yeah.
And try to throw something together in a month. Oh, this is the Maddle I was talking about. So this is Jeremy Maddle's character. And so I did a little animation for this, and I just did a Sketchbot skin.
I love it. It's refreshing with the square shapes. It's very cool. It still has the Sketchbot feel. It's a good mixture of his work and yours.
Thanks.
I like this.
And then this was for a
Dude.
little, the Mimo bots, the
Yeah.
little USB store. So they had a little contest. So I put together 2 little submissions for that. But actually, they just wanted people to draw on the 2D thing. Of course, I had to take it one step
You're
further. So
gonna
I
go,
modeled in 3D.
I'm gonna model it.
And I went ahead and did a render of it and stuff.
I love it.
That was for a cool little website called Urban Vinyl Daily. I did a
Oh.
little masthead for them.
Dude, he really bit it. He's bleeding.
So you want to go to the
Yeah, I
Beats by
wanted
Drake?
the Beats by Drake because I loved this.
The
I
Beats-
thought-
no,
was
I
this
did-
an actual commission or were you pitching this?
So
Or?
here's the thing. I was just hired to continue on with the poses. So I didn't actually design these guys.
Okay.
But they gave me the models, and then I would have to. They were like, this is like for social media stuff. So they would say, hey, we need 3 or 4 of these done today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would either get for the controllers, I would find the controllers on TurboSquid and then
Sure.
throw it together. Or some of them I got to do some custom stuff. So I think if
Yeah.
you go through, I think there's a couple you'll see like I modeled the boxes
Right.
and all the stuff here, and I threw these renders together.
I didn't even. Did they do a TV spot for this? I didn't even see this.
No, they do have some animation, but for this one here, I actually got to bring this into ZBrush. I did the coat with all the little gems
Oh,
and the
yeah.
hair, and I did everything in ZBrush.
That's awesome.
And so I was able to use the model as a guide, do all the accessories, and then throw it in, and then just do a quick render.
Yeah.
This here was, I think we just found some dreadlock hair that I cut out, but I did the shirt as well as a 3D asset.
Oh yeah, I didn't even. I'm usually pretty good at catching that stuff, but I didn't even notice that you just comped that over. But it looks good.
Yeah, so
it blends really well.
because these are just for social media.
Sure.
I can get away with a lot of cheats. So these
Yep.
were just that was find a nice hair that we like,
Tricks of the trade.
and then do a bunch of Photoshop compositing.
Yep.
This one here again, like that dress was a quick ZBrush sculpt.
Doing
and
little
I have to do this in an
wrinkles
hour. So I'm
Yeah.
so let me take them. I'll pose the model in Maya because I have to pose it out first. Then I'll hard code that version, bring it over to ZBrush, and I'll just do a mask
Yeah.
and extract to get a quick
Yep.
T-shirt or whatever I need to do.
great way
and
to
then-
do
and then
clothes.
bang it out really quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's is
Same,
this?
same thing with these two. Yeah, that was fun. So that was the winter coat was the same thing. Puff it up in ZBrush, and then I did the zipper and stuff. With
I was say, did you use the IMM zebra
I think I
zipper
did.
brush?
I think I used the IMM for this one, yeah.
Invaluable. I forget which artist gave us that one, but kudos to. I mean, I wish I could shout it out right now. It's too hard to pull it up on the site, but
Yeah, I
it's
totally used- I
in
used it for
ZBrush,
this.
and if you click on it, the person's name's on it.
I remembered that was there, so I was like, let me
Yep.
do it there.
Yeah, I loved these. I thought these were very cool. I'd never seen the advertising that they ended up using for this, but it's all look dev, right? This is all for them to make final decisions, or were these the final?
These were the finals.
These were the finals that they used.
A lot of these were done. You notice a lot of square formats. These were done to post on Instagram and Twitter.
Makes sense.
And then we did a bunch of just stills, 1920 by 1080 stills that would be used for on-air stuff for like Best Buy or Target
Yeah.
or whatever. They had some of these, so they would just throw them on. So you'll see some like this was like for a holiday one. So again, I sculpted the background in ZBrush.
That's great.
So I did the pose of the character, brought it in, and I just placed it on a plane. And I used it as a guide to go through and do this.
Yeah, and carve around
And I
and-
think I actually ended up using the noise filter just to give a little bit of noise, and
Yep.
then I rendered it out to make it look like it was.
Pirate
the
hat.
pirate hat was done in ZBrush.
There's a ton of different variations. Did you ever see any of these in Best Buy or anything like that?
No, but I did see. Actually, there's a the down by the Semi Pier. There's that that Fritz Siegel.
Yes.
They had a little pop up shop with these, and I took a picture. They had one of these giant ones printed up.
That's
So I had a picture of
awesome.
myself in front of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's the best feeling when you can. I would imagine you can go out and you see the work that you did out in public. That's cool.
So it was like these. It's like, hey, see, we need 5 of these done to post. So I would just they would give me the text. I would do everything, composite all together, and I was like, okay, let me grab for instance here, we grabbed, we found some stock art that we could use for the bags.
Yeah.
So I just composited in the thing. So this is kind of fun, doing this kind of work too. Is really fast.
Mm-hmm.
They trusted me. They were like, hey, Steve, here's what we need. Just take it, and I would just do them. And they didn't have to have a turnaround. They're like, hey, we trust you. Whatever you give us, we're gonna post.
Right.
So I like working like that. I was like, they kind of trust me as an art director. I can come up with what I want, and then and do that.
What I love about just your workflow and the way that your brain works is you seem to, even your social media feeds, you spend a lot of time trying out all different things still to this day. And I mean, just hearing a little bit about your past, it seems like you continue to do that. Like you're not hung up on I only use these tools and this is all I'm going to use. You're kind of open to trying out new things. You have the iPad Pro that you're now sketching on a ton.
Dude, I love the iPad Pro,
Yeah.
and Procreate is the best investment I made.
Yeah.
I use this thing every day.
Yeah. And it's become like your drawing tool, your direct drawing tool now.
Yeah, I love it.
What's your setup like at home?
So
big
at home,
Wacom.
I have a Mac Pro, 2013 Mac Pro that I spent way too much money on.
It's never too much if it's
Because I've been in the Mac ecosystem forever. So I got that. I have a Wacom 27 QHD now. I had a 21 UX. Here's another story. Over the years, I've always been first it was I used Wacom tablets for many years, but only for drawing. And then when I was like Wava, one of my friends, we had a sister company, Freestyle Collective. They did a bunch of cool motion graphics. One of my buddies was using his tablet with mine. I'm like, how do you do that? It's like I can't. There's no way. He goes, you should try it. So I did.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And then I was like, convert. So then at home, I got a 21 UX, the small one, years ago. And then I had an ergotronic arm, but I only would use it to draw occasionally. And for the many years, I confess, it would sit right. It was my secondary monitor.
You would just push it over to the side.
I would push over, and it would be my secondary monitor for reference, whatever.
Yeah,
I would only grab it over when I was drawing. Occasionally, I tried using ZBrush in it, but I just couldn't. I was using my tablet, my Intuos tablet.
Okay.
And then I remember making the change. I was talking to Talkowski because one day he's like, you should do it. So I said, okay, I rearranged stuff. I took the Wacom off the arm. I put it on its stand.
Yeah.
And I said, this is my primary input device.
Yeah.
And I'm going to force myself to do it. And it was tough for about a week.
Yeah.
And then once I started doing it, I'm like, okay, this is it. And so then after a while, then I was like, I'm going to upgrade. So then I bought the 21, the big one.
So you found it was better. You enjoyed it much more.
So now everything's done in that. I mean, but here's the thing that sucks is it's so big that I had to have my keyboard on my lap.
Oh yeah, I'm such a.
My ergonomics are terrible.
I'm still going through this numbing thing. I've mentioned it in the podcast
be careful
previously,
with that.
and I spend so much time on Control Shift Alt, and I'm over here, and my hands will get locked, especially with ZBrush because I'm using masking, selection, all those things. I'm like, ugh, like my hand.
Some people have one of those angle tables where they are actually able to have it here, but for me, I have to have it on my lap.
Yeah, I like it directly in front. I need to make some transitions, I think, or start using the options on the sides, which is something I don't like.
I still have to confess, I did not use the little remote key.
Yeah.
I know you can set like all options, shift.
If I learned that in the first place, it wouldn't be a problem. But because I got so attached to this one way of working, and I pride myself on how fast I can select my hotkeys, and I try and get better all the time. But I get stuck. It'll just be like, and it's cramping. It'll go numb a little bit still. So it's like I'm always thinking about it all day. How do I fix this? And I still haven't figured out the best way. I really think using those buttons on the side would help. But I like to visualize what keys I'm looking at and see. And sometimes when I'm looking at 4 buttons that don't have any labels, maybe I should just get a label maker. That might help.
Or just maybe color code it.
Yeah, color code it would be cool. I could just go in and draw on it or make a little sticker or something.
Sticker,
yeah, that would be a good idea. Well, yeah, I guess my point was that you're very open to trying all these new things and you're continuing to add to your tool set, and it seems to give you this ability to just quickly come up with an idea, sketch it out, create it, tell a story too, which I think is really important always. And it seems like almost all of your work is all about visualizing it as if it was a feature or if it was animated or what the character does. And all these stills have such great story.
Thank you.
And it's very cool. But I guess leading up to or talking about all these things, since you've kind of got Sketchbot off the ground and you've gone through all these things, you have some new doors that have opened up. Right? Some new things that you're working on.
So based on, we talked about briefly the March of Robots stuff.
Yeah.
The Henson Company saw that and wanted to do a show. So I just signed my contract this week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So basically I sold my IP for a certain range of character design. We are developing a show based on my robots.
Which you were able to show me a pretty amazing preview before we started the podcast. Unfortunately, you can't show it here, but it's in the same vein of all of these, Martial Robots, Bottober, all of that. It's the same thing, right? They like your style that you developed.
So the show is going to be the robots in live action world, and I got to do a test last year, so that was kind of cool. The test got shown at a convention last fall. We got really good reception. We're showing some new stuff at another kid screen coming up. So right now we're trying to find someone to buy the show, and hopefully we can be in production.
Dude, that's awesome!
Year.
I can't wait. The animation, the visuals looked incredible. It's unique too. It's not like I'm out watching kid shows, but the stuff you see on Nick Jr. and all these other shows, like in Disney, what is Disney for kids? They have a Disney Kids channel, right? Or I don't know what it is. You have a daughter. How old is she?
She just turned 7.
Okay, so she's probably in that realm of watching a lot of that.
She's going through phase, right? She's in the Me and the Princess Sophia phase.
Oh yeah, I've heard Princess Sophia before.
Yeah, but she's cool. She keeps me on my toes with this stuff. Octobots was another good one, and we went to see the live show for Octobots. So I don't. And the thing for me is like I don't know every single kid show that's out there.
Sure.
Which is kind of good because I don't want to know everything.
It keeps your creativity
I
fresh,
kinda
and you're not
like,
inspired
I'm aware
by
of some of the hits. So like when we're developing our show, I'm like, yeah, I know there's certain things that we need to hit for playability and this and that, but I kind of like don't want to be influenced by that. So I kind of try to, I'm aware of it, but I'm not like I don't know every single thing that's going on out there.
Yeah.
In addition to that, and here's another thing about opening doors. So while we had been talking for the last 3 years about getting this going, in the meantime, Lisa Henson liked my stuff enough that she recommended me to art direct on another show that they have right now. It's on Netflix called Word Party.
Oh.
So that's kind of another cool thing where it's like after that whole introduction, then they're like, hey, can you work on this other show with us while we're also doing the other thing on the side? So I ended up doing that, art directing, new character designs for that show and all the sets and props for a complete season of that.
Yeah.
So that started last summer.
What network is that played on? Is that on?
That's on Netflix.
Netflix? Okay.
So like again, it's like you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Post your work online, but do it professionally in a way that is project based, so people can see. Like I use Behance a lot too.
Yeah.
And people see. I've gotten so much job opportunities from Behance.
What about ArtStation? You use ArtStation as well?
I use ArtStation now too. I haven't gotten any referrals from ArtStation, but I do get a lot from Behance right now.
Yeah.
And from my website too.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't checked your ZBC thread in a while. You keep that updated, right? On ZBrush
Yeah,
Central?
it's been a while since you cut these up and down. Like I had a stage where I think I was posting a lot more, and then when you get busy, kind of can't.
That's usually the case. Like artists will disappear for a long time, then they come back and they put a huge dump on ZBC or post it in other places, or do it in all formats.
And then also,
basically.
and I remember when ZBC first started, and it was like very minimal, and now it's like there's so much like I can't lose track. It's like
I know. Well, we have the classic view, and then we have the new updated view, which is a lot more like Pinterest as far as like the cover, the flows, and you can like and follow and comment and all of that, which is a great way I think for any artist to, especially for into ZBrush or to get feedback and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's come a long way. Top row.
I'm gonna give a shout out too for the ZBrush Summit. Because
yes, of course.
I love the summit, and I got to be one of the artists last year.
Yeah, you were in the Sculpt
2015 Sculpt Up. Not less. I keep my forgetting we're in 2017, but I did the 2015 Sculpt Up, which is awesome. I took a great course with the Kios Masons guys.
Oh, Kios Masons guys were so great.
And I have to say, I learned so much in that 3 hours.
Yeah.
They
seem to have a really great chemistry together as far as how they complement each other with artwork.
One of Marco's that wasp character.
Yes, so cool, man.
Sweet,
so cool. So you've been coming to the summit for 3 years now.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just discussing the platform as far as being on the Noman campus in LA, talking about expansion, which you like the intimacy.
I personally like going to Noman because I like that it's it's local, it's there, and you have the classrooms, you have the gallery.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very unique experience that really doesn't exist.
But the summit's growing, so I know you guys want more vendors, more people, more opportunities for people to see stuff.
We've talked about it, and who knows where it's going to go. I don't know. At this point, last year was successful because we're still growing, and I think what we do want to have is a larger audience there on site, which last year was more. I mean, it keeps growing, so more people are figuring it out, and even traveling. Traveling overseas, flying. Just to come, not even as guests. Or speakers. So.
It's great to meet people to find in person.
Well, that's the best part is that, I always talk about this, like we have this strange community of 3D artists, how we all kind of are connected just through social media and sharing, and some people's work based on their work. But then you meet the person, it's like, oh crap, like I know you, and like I know you, and everybody kind of freaks out, and it's cool. You just get to hang out.
I was talking to someone the other day. Do you remember a time before the internet?
Yeah.
Because I remember I was moving to New York from Arizona, and we were just getting this notion of, there's something called email that we might get an account, but I didn't get one yet. So I moved to New York.
Thing called email.
I remember going to New York, and I remember I saw I have Wired magazine #1, right?
Oh wow!
And I remember going to an internet cafe at St. Mark's Place and paying like $15-20 for half an hour, and I would have my sketchbook and I would write down entire http:// and I write down websites that I would read that I want to go and look up online. and like
it's changed so much.
Because like even before that, I mean, I was working at a place for 7 years where we had SGI machines, and how we would pass our time when things would render.
Yeah.
We would either play Flight Simulator or we would Nerf basketball, or we would go out and do something. we didn't have the internet, and
Yeah.
now it's like I can't imagine not having it.
I know.
It's such a weird thing.
It is a weird transition. I think that the way that, like my generation thinks, even for me, like there was a time I grew up without the internet. I mean, I was maybe in my teens when it started to become a thing, and it was like I still spent most of my time outside. I was very hands-on with everything. So I got a good mix, and you got a good mix of kind of both worlds, and ushering in this new era.
And like my
everything is
daughter,
online.
She knows this.
I'm sure she's
she knows
a whiz.
she knows this.
Yeah.
Like that's what she knows.
Yeah.
Which is like, so like, what's happened like, in 10 more years, 15 years?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's exponential.
Well, I'm hoping that the VR and AR, that's something else that I'm really passionate about, and I want to get into it.
Yes.
If anybody from Apple is watching,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit upset because I can't use my $7,000 machine with any VR apps.
Oh, interesting.
Right
Why so? Why? What?
Because you can't run a Vive, or you can't run,
right.
or the Oculus Rift. They don't run on Mac, so I have to get a PC to do this. And I know that
They should.
something's
get on
going
it.
on, but I'm gonna have to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have Vive or
don't
Oculus,
have
or you're
anything.
not going to purchase until?
I don't have anything yet. I'm thinking about maybe building my own PC rig just for
Yeah.
VR. And I've tried it. I finally got to try Tilt Brush last year at SIGGRAPH, and I loved it. And then I got to try Medium at DesignerCon.
Yes.
And I was like, oh man, this thing is sweet.
Yeah, it's
And
awesome. Sculpting in VR, is it's a growing thing, and I see the results getting better and better.
So here's my thing. So the controllers, the touch controllers are awesome.
Yeah.
But my dream is I want to have ZBrush running in
Yep.
VR, and I want to have a haptic glove.
Yep.
Haptic feedback glove, so I can sit there like a pottery wheel, and I can push and pull.
Yes.
And I can feel the feedback, and I can get back to using your hands to sculpt instead of using this kind of input device. Use your hands to
Yeah.
push and pull.
Trust me,
data. And that's the thing. I think it's going to get there.
Yeah, I will. It's going to. It's just a matter of time. And it's not that we haven't had those conversations. We definitely have, for a long time. It's just a matter of, we have to make decisions and figure out what to do. But who knows? It could happen, which I know a ton of ZBrushers out there that would love it. So, if people are screaming ZBrush in VR, we'll hear the call. But, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. We're still in development for 4.8 right now, which But I guess, getting back to your story, because I'm really interested in kind of how you feel, because we're talking about all kinds of things, being in a world before the internet, before all these things, getting introduced to computer graphics, and then just kind of making your way here. It seems like you never really had any intentions of maybe going into directing or writing or, producing a show. And all of these things have kind of gotten to that point. So how does it feel for you having this show, signing that contract and now going into, figuring out how to produce this thing? What has that been like for you? And you're doing this full time, right? You don't have, formerly you were working as a art director or director in animation, and now you're just doing this full time, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't had a full-time job since I left Guava back in 2008. So I've been freelancing.
You're just freelancing a ton.
Freelance a ton, and it's ups and downs with that.
Sure.
But yeah, with the show, it's like and we're meeting with writers, and I learned a lot of new terminology that I didn't know in certain areas for that aspect, and so it's another growing and learning experience for me. When I first was designing these characters, I didn't think of them as a show right off the bat. I thought they were going to be my next generation of toys.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this is a new design language that might be the next version of Sketchbots. But obviously, becoming from an animation standpoint, I always think about how I want them to maybe animate at some point or move.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about stories in the back of my mind. But now that it's like someone showed interest in it, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is a world here that I some of these do have a backstory, and let's develop it. Now I'm
Right.
thinking about being a developer of story is a whole nother thing. And I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
So,
But you have ideas.
I have
You
ideas,
clearly
but I
have
need-
good ideas.
Yeah, I have ideas, but I need to work with someone who can
to formulate them into a direction, right? But I guess my leading towards that, my point was kind of, I think it's really important for artists we spend all this time sculpting and modeling all this stuff, and a lot of people will dedicate like huge amounts of time, especially newcomers, where you want to be that. Like I used to have dreams of being on top row, like before I started working at Pixelogic. It's like that was a big thing for me. But the thing that separates you, and others have said this, Chris Costa said this on our last podcast. It's extremely important to tell a story with your work and put that effort in telling a story, not just sculpting like out like this, in T-pose because you're going to send it to game or whatever. If that's what you want to work on professionally, but if you want to create good artwork and you want to open up these doors, telling a story does something. It's the difference. It's probably one of the things that the reason why they found you. If you were just doing them like you do standard Sketchbot, it wouldn't be I feel like it wouldn't be as impactful.
Yeah, no,
right?
you're right. Yeah, and actually, I want to say also something that I just picked up again the other day from Jake Parker.
Yeah.
He posted this little thing about I'm gonna screw up idea bank or as a idea. It was a way of like if you ever feel like you're dried up or like you have nothing to work on, you need to make deposits into your idea bank. So
That's interesting.
with your sketches, just think of something that you might have an idea, so just jot it down and store it away and deposit it for later.
Right.
And I took that to heart, thinking like, yeah, even at my age and like I'm like, there's still times where I feel like I should have been thinking about this as a story, or thinking about more of a backstory for what this is instead of just doing it. And I see the work that I look at, I'm like, oh yeah, that one was just like a throwaway because I wasn't really thinking about anything. But this one has something because I was thinking like, oh yeah, maybe he's a character and he's like interacting with this character.
Yeah.
So it's like try to think about situations or backstory or something, some kind of narrative to what you're working on, and that helps to inform the piece itself.
Right.
Think about it as a piece versus just a standalone.
Well, and that's a good point because as artists, I mean, I know in my own head I got all kinds of stuff just like I'll come up with ideas and they're as easily thought of as they are just removed completely or they're stored away and you kind of forget about them. So it's about understanding the way that you think and collecting that data, whatever you can.
Yeah,
keep that sketchbook, write everything down. If you're not good at remembering stuff and you're good at coming up with ideas, just keep track of those things like you said, which I've run into issues like that all the time where I'll hit creative blocks. I'm like, I just don't feel like working on anything and I'm just not inspired.
I've even tried journaling my dreams a couple times too.
Oh, interesting.
Because I sometimes have like these really vivid, detailed dreams, like color, motion, everything, and I've been having some crazy ones because I was getting all this cold, and so I was taking NyQuil a lot.
Yeah,
I have these like NyQuil infused dreams.
They give you some crazy.
They even give me even crazier dreams, and I'm like, I wake up in the middle of the night, or like it's like, oh my god, this thing happened. I'll try to like write it down, or take the phone and try to jot some notes down just to remember it because you'll forget it in the morning. But sometimes those will inform something. I'm like, why? And like I know that there was like something is in the dream because maybe something happened in real life. But I'm like, man, it's like some of those you get some really crazy ideas too.
Yeah,
and dreams.
Oh, so absolutely.
Try to do dream journaling.
Interesting. Can we see some of that? I'd love to see that. You haven't posted any of that, have you?
No, probably all psychedelic stuff right now.
But I love it though. So I mean, so you got this project is still in the works, but it's looking like it's going to be a really good thing for you.
Let's hope so. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah. So what do you have in store for you after that? What are your ambitions from here? Do you have any major plans?
If the show gets picked up, I will be on as an active producer on that, which would be great. Active role on that. And then I really want to I have some ideas for Sketchbot version 2.
Nice.
Mark 2.
Oh, Mark 2. Like that's one of the coolest things about Iron Man is all the marks, different changes. I love it.
So I just came with this idea like a couple weeks ago, and I started doing some sketching, and I posted it to social media. So the whole idea is like, what is Sketchbot just a robot? And then I thought, what if he's a mech and there's something inside controlling the Sketchbot?
Nice. So he's like the Megazord. And
I did some drawings. They're on my Instagram. If you want to go to my Instagram, I don't know if Kyle wants to pop up that really quick. But
it's fourth one from the left.
Yeah, go to my Instagram, and I did this character. I did a version of Sketchbot where as a more of a mech suit, and the eyes cut out with a blinker, and I'm thinking, like, what if that was a character that was a pilot in there? So if you scroll down a couple images, you'll see. Go to load more.
Oh, doing a little whale watching?
Yeah, we got
nice.
So you'll see there that little sketch right there
with the eyeball
was an idea of like, what if this is the character that's actually inside controlling the mech? And now, Kyle, if you go back out of here. And then go down to this one right here. You'll see there's one of my Procreate sketches. So this was me. You actually hit the play button. You can see as I'm drawing. So I did a couple ideas here. This was like I had like
nice.
I had a flurry of activity the other night. This is about 3 weeks ago. I did these, and I was just like, okay, here's like this little guy. What is he? A little pilot in a suit, and what's his like? He's like, this is where he's gonna sit inside the mech. And so I did some expanded drawings about like if the new toy was something where like maybe the size of a ping pong in real
Right.
life could be just the eye with a stamp on it with the different characters, and then I would have a modular system so you can actually pop off the head,
Right.
pop up the ball. And
So
put
is this like I'm thinking of like Pacific Rim where they have like the controllers
I was
just like
kinda
in
thinking
there
that,
like
yeah, seeing like
that would be great.
It's almost like and like MODOK from the
Yes.
Marvel. I always
You're
like the
just
idea of
controlling-
MODOK. He's like controlling.
He's the Wizard of Oz, just
he's
pulling
like,
levers
yeah,
randomly.
so I kind of want this
do
guy
stuff.
to be a little guy in his suit there. And I think what I have on here is I did a little. So I have it really quickly. I'll show you the sketch that it's based on. If I have it quickly, yeah, I don't think I have it quickly available.
This recording, this is all doing your sketches in what application are you using for this again?
I'm using Procreate.
Procreate. Do they have recording features? Are you able to time lapse
You
this
can,
in
you can also
Procreate?
you can stream. So this is
Okay.
this is what I'm working on here.
Oh,
So
wow,
This is
that
actually going to be an illustration for
I love it.
Nothing But MacBook coming up. So
Oh,
this is-
okay.
This is gonna be. But
you're doing. Oh, you're gonna put. You're submitting that into Nothing But Mech.
Yeah.
They're on. They just released 3. They're doing 4 now.
So
right?
I was in 3, and then I'm actually co-producing the book with Lauren now for 4.
Nice.
So I think it's gonna be the last one.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah. So that's going through a Design Press Studio. Design
Okay.
Studio Press. Scott Robertson.
I love. I have 2 of those books. I don't have all of them, but Paul has all of them.
Yeah.
I just steal books from Paul.
And,
sometimes.
that's another opportunity right there for like, okay, I got to think of like a nice narrative piece to post
Yeah.
for that. So
Yeah.
they got me to maybe kind of come up with something like this and
Yeah.
kind of flesh out what that character's going to be. So
What do you does it ever get overwhelming for you? It's just like because I feel like sometimes we're all kind of spinning our wheels. We want to create, and it's just a never ending. It's just part of us. Being an artist, you're always going to want to create something.
yeah, I mean,
and
it's tough. I mean, like being a father and being a husband, it's hard to.
Yeah.
When you're single, yeah, you can spend as much time as you want and stuff. What I find is that you have to be very good planning your time.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to do a lot of work late at night. When,
Yeah.
I put
when you
Lila
get some
down, and
alone
when my wife goes
time,
to bed
and-
early, and then I'm like, I'm gonna be in the back working till like 1 if I can
Yeah.
in the morning. I have a luxury of working at home. My studio's in the garage, which is nice. So
Yeah.
I usually do pick up from school. So that's something I make sure I try to get my workday done to a certain point, and then after that, I'm like, I'm dad.
that's pretty amazing.
And then it's like, okay, and then at nighttime when everyone's in bed, I can go back to create. So
Yeah.
I have to kind of like, it's a different, and like, yeah, but I mean, like, and I posted this, I was like, vacation, like breaks and stuff. Like, I hate vacations.
right,
Like,
because it's taking you away from the thing that
and
you love
it's
to
like
do
a total
already.
opposite from like my wife. So she loves to
Well,
go on
most
vacation.
people
Like,
take vacation because they're trying to get away, and you're
And
like,
me-
I love what I do. I don't
I
want to
always
stop.
like my vacations away from work were like chance to work on your own stuff.
Yeah,
And
I
so
totally understand that.
It's a tough thing because when you're an artist, any form of creation, like you always are thinking about. I'm always like that's why if I have to be on a hike or something and I'm away from maybe I can actually think about something creative and I'll start taking photos and
Yeah.
I'm thinking about something I can use it down the road for a back plane or something like that.
Right.
Or if I'm going to go to a new area, yeah, I might kind of kick and scream. I don't want to go on vacation, but okay, I'm here. Let me see if I can maybe use this new environment as a way. So yes, we should be open to these ideas and
Sure.
be open to these new experiences, but it's also like, man, I want to just be back at the station or
Yeah.
at the thing working and sketching and creating because
Yeah.
I feel like at the times like I need to get,
Yeah, it's just
hard.
you're trying to. Sometimes you have to probably stifle that a little bit, or
So, honey, thank you for putting up with
yeah.
me, and
Well-
all other significant others of other artists and creative types. Thanks for putting up with us.
Well, I
because
mean,
we are like that.
You
We're
are
crazy.
one of many people who are managing this lifestyle with a family and with other responsibilities. And it's shout out to all those people that are able to do it. And I think that if you're able to get to a certain point where you're comfortable with your skills, it's probably a blessing in some ways where it kind of forces you to like buckle down on your work, and you can't spend that much time because if you open the doors up to say I'm single and I have unlimited amounts of time, you're in your early 20s. Some people will get hung up on one project forever.
But also,
you
here's
know,
the thing: you never know when's going to hit.
yeah,
You might not have some ideas until later on in life.
Yeah.
I mean, like with me, I always all my career was like working for other people, doing other stuff. I had ideas and things, but I didn't really. It wasn't until really maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago that I really was like, okay, now I kind of burnt out doing other people's work. I kind of have stuff that I want to get out.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of start getting it out.
Right.
And now I feel like I'm 51. I'm like, man, it's like I got so much stuff now that I want to get going out.
yeah,
And it's like I wish I had the same energy and the free time I had when I was in my 20s
Sure.
and 30s, but you have to you can't dictate when it happens.
Well, and
It
we're always
happens at
going to
different
want what
points.
we formerly had. You know, you always want what you had before. But in reality, if you look at it, in the present,
I
you
think
can manage those things
Yeah, so I
much
think the
better.
older you get, okay, so you're a little bit wiser. You're like, okay, now I know what I need to do to get stuff done. So I
Yeah.
am going to prioritize. I'm not going to screw around and waste my time.
Right.
So you kind of like, you have to look at that and say, okay, well, now I know what to do.
Right, and you seem like you have an equal split of time between family time and art time, and you're able to manage all those things, which is really good to hear. Because
I try.
You try. Well, I mean, you guys went to the march, and you guys are, seems like you guys go to the beach.
We went
and,
whale watching.
Yeah, you went,
which was awesome.
Was that down in Palos Verdes
Monterey.
or Monterey?
It was for Grandma and Grandpa's one of their birthdays. We usually go to
Nice.
San Francisco, but this year we went to Monterey, and we had gotten a gift pass for doing the whale watching.
Yeah.
And so you'll see, I post that we saw 2 humpback breaches. I'm like flipping out,
Nice.
going, "Oh my god!"
Is the Jewel of Morro Bay, California, up there, or is that the
Morro Bay is up like by
how-
Cambria.
okay, so it's a little
just
further
south of
away.
Cambria, but so Monterey is up a little bit further.
Yeah, I've been doing the aquarium circuits lately. Like my girlfriend surprised me for my birthday last year. I went to Long Beach, and I've hit all the aquariums around here, but I
Yeah.
want to go up there.
The Monterey Aquarium is really cool too.
Yeah, that's what I hear. It basically, somebody just told me recently that I just watched Finding Dory again last night, and it's such a, but I guess it's pretty accurate to what the aquarium looks like, I guess. But I love going to stuff like that just to get reference, and it's
Did you see
inspiring.
the talk that did you go to the Render Man thing last year?
No, I didn't.
Because they talked about Dory and
Did they?
And I have a great relationship with the Pixar guys and Dylan Sisson. Shout out to the guys at Render Man. They helped me get some stuff together so I can render out my test.
That's so cool.
We
of
rendered
them.
out in Render Man, and
It looked fantastic.
everyone should download the non-commercial version of Render Man. It's free to
Yeah,
use.
you can
It's
plug it into
awesome.
pretty much anything.
Yeah, so it's a fun renderer to use. And,
Yeah.
so I use that between that and Keyshot. That's what I use.
Yeah.
I wish I could start doing some of the real time stuff like the Redshift and Octane. I can't do it because I don't have an NVIDIA card on my Mac. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of locked into other options. But
Yeah, I've been trying to, I've been a couple months off of teaching, but in my character design class, I do a lot of mental rate, but we have access to RenderMan. It's just a matter of taking the time to learn the new tools and figuring out how to work it into the system. But, there's plenty of options, and Keyshot is amazing. It's very fast. It's very quick. And for me, my workflow is just ZBrush and Keyshot, and I just port everything over, and it's immediate, and being able to take polypaint's a big deal, just quickly drop some stuff on there. But, well, it's very cool to hear all of these things are panning into something for you, and you seem pretty content with the way that it is, and you're not really putting any pressure on yourself to, set any standards, or you're just, doing the stuff you love, and it's turning into great things.
yeah, I've been lucky. I'm sometimes you go through these dry spells as a freelancer,
Sure.
which is tough when you have a family. But sometimes I'll take on 2 jobs at once just to kind of keep it going. And
Yeah.
things are going really well right now. I'm actually designing 2 new characters for a city public works project that I got contacted from another job I did with the same agency. So this time I got to I'm doing everything from character design through modeling, rigging, presentation, and images. So I will be using. We're waiting for the first pass to be approved by the client, and then when it is, I'm going to jump into ZBrush right away and do the sculpt. And
Nice.
then I'll do
Okay.
the retopo and get it ready for back to Maya because I have to rig it up, and it has to be set up for animation at some point.
Right.
So I'm like looking forward to that because that'd be like, okay, now I get to work full time in ZBrush again, just on sculpting.
Yeah.
It's just the sculpting stage, which is great.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. It's all I do. I don't do any of the other stuff. I teach retopo for character design, but all I have to worry about is the creation process and how to properly build all your stuff. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it's for me. It's like I don't know. I'm my skills are getting very rusty and all those other things, but it's cool. You get to you're kind of firing on all cylinders. You're doing all of it at once, which is amazing and crazy. But somehow you got a system that works.
I wish I could work in ZBrush all day, all the time.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I don't get it for a while, I will just get antsy and I'll just fire it up, and I'll just fire up a Dynamesh wax, and I'll just start doing something just to do it, because otherwise you gotta kind of keep your muscles.
Exactly. Well, if you take a few days off and you're not sculpting as much, like you do have to kind of like warm up. You do have to warm up. It's not like okay, I'm doing it.
One thing I would like to try is, and I did this years ago before a lot of people were doing it, was I had an old Mac Pro and I was at the tablet at Blue Sky, and we would do life drawing sessions, and I would use I think just whatever Photoshop when I was doing life drawing on the computer with the tablet.
Yeah.
And that was years ago before having even a tablet, and I would like to try to get back to that, but doing sculpting, like sculpting from the figure,
Yeah.
from a live action figure, but using ZBrush to kind of like
That would be cool.
maybe like get a mannequin out and then pose it to what they're doing, and then start sculpting the detail and matching that. I would like to try something
Sculpting
like
asymmetrically, not starting with perfect symmetry. That is a true test of a sculpting master because we are so spoiled. Like I took one clay sculpting class, was like, oh, I loved it. You know, it gave me a deeper appreciation for sculpture. But it was
guys like Mike DeFeo and Scott Eaton. And
exactly, and I was learning from John Brown at Noman, who's since now just dedicates his life to teaching, but formerly used to do that as a full-time job. And it's like, man, I would have to go all the way back to when I started using ZBrush and start using clay instead to be able to translate across. It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole for me. It was I just spent so much time. Like I spent all my time on wireframe and posing because I knew how important that was going to be with the posture. And then I, throughout the time of the class, it's like I was working. So, and with clay, you got to spend a lot of time. So we are spoiled, but it has a deeper appreciation for the time and the skill level for the people that are able to do it. So I think sculpting asymmetrically is a good thing to do. Yeah. But
I took a figure sculpting class in college, so I did 2 semesters worth of it. So I got into the whole armature and working from model, and I will say that the best classes I took were art anatomy.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we'd spend 1 hour in lecture, and I had this great teacher who would, this is like, we have overhead projector, and he would basically give you these handouts, and you would have your colored markers, and you would talk about, the first half of the semester was bones, structure, skeletal structure, and the second half was muscles. So you get down, you would draw the origin, the point of insertion, and you would learn all that stuff. Then you go and you would draw for 3 hours in front of a live model, and that to me totally changed all my figure drawing stuff because everything looked like sack of potatoes. So I was like trying to draw the muscles what I thought they would look like. But then when you finally learn that, and
that changes
and then
everything.
But then years have passed where I didn't really apply that, and now I'm like find myself going back to I have like all my old anatomy books that I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, at least you still have them to kind of go back and reference,
like those George Bribbin books, and like how he saw in volumes, and I love that kind of stuff too. As I see in volumes, so like you start going back to that kind of stuff and like reapplying it. So whenever I get a chance to do something that's figurative or something that's based on something that needs to have like some kind of like anatomy structure to it, I'm always thinking about that. Oh yeah, and I'll like pop up something, or like I'll use like one of these apps now that you can just pop up an app and you can actually see something, and oh yeah, that's how that muscle overlaps that muscle. And
right, I still have the Anatomy for Artists book. I keep all those, and another good resource. You know who this is, but Andrew Cause, Anatomy Tools, the Anatomy Tools workshop. He sits in a room. It's a very intimate group. It's about maybe 15 people or so. I don't know how many seats he has total, but it's 3 days over the weekend. You're sitting in a circle. You all have ZBrush and a Cintiq, and he goes through and shows you points of insertion. That class I've heard from a couple people that have taken it have just it's skyrocketed their understanding of anatomy sculpturally as well, because he's still doing that, going through a point of insertion, where it connects, mass and placement and balancing everything out. And he has a great way of describing it. And he shows you, and then you do it, and then he shows you the next one, and then you do it. So in a whole day, you're getting a full like posed character, sculpting asymmetrically, and it's very cool. And that stuff, at the ground level, that's the most important thing, especially if you're doing characters. Mech is one of those things. It's like, that's why I would love to see you do some sort of hyper detailed mech. I'd like to see where you take that, or like some sort of mixture of what you have, like the Keyshot bot, but even more. I'd be curious to see what you would come up with, because
some of those sketches that you saw earlier, those mech sketches, some of those I was trying to play. Here's the thing I think with me is like, there's a design language in mechs, and I have a whole Pinterest board that I save for reference of, but I have to focus and say, okay, what am I actually? It has to be workable.
Yeah.
So like, what kind of drawing am I going to do?
Functionality is first.
So for me, it's like I always respond first to the visual and just see what I think is kind of cool. But then it's like it takes me a long time to sit down and draw, actually figure out how it's going to work.
Right.
So I think certain people have like their distinct style. Like there's like Vitali has his look.
Right.
Ben Morrow has his look. Ara's got his look. Different people have their different take on design language for how they do certain things. Even that Fod Kadri.
Kadri,
that guy's amazing. He's like doing some stuff. So I think for me, I need to figure out if I'm going to go down that path of the hyper realistic one.
Yeah.
I need to figure out something unique.
All right.
So you know how Conan has Clueless Gamer?
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to do. Not going to call it Clueless, but we got to do something like a Clueless ZBrush, where I think what we have is you have an artist who's working, and you have like you or Paul or Joseph or whoever sitting with us, And as you're working, you start asking why you're doing certain things or how you're doing.
Oh.
So that way, it's like I know there's a thing where you have an artist out there and they present. They might get a little time of
Sure, but that's a sort of calculated.
It might be kind of fun to do a different thing, and maybe this can be something with the new live channel where you maybe invite people to come in and say, okay, we're going to spend 3 hours. I'm just going to do some work today.
Yeah.
And as you're working,
just start.
You talk and this is what people I think did initially when Twitch first started. Like I see different people say, hey, you guys want to jump on Twitch? And then we did it with Google Hangouts. I did it a couple times. Probably like 3 years ago, I tried it with I can't remember his name. It's
ZBrush Hangouts. You're talking about those
ZBrush
guys?
Hangouts. Yeah, we did ZBrush Hangouts. So it's like you'd have a screen, and we'd all just be working.
Yep.
And you could see whoever. I think that's kind of a good thing because then you can like ask a question like, "Hey, do you remember how to do this?" And
right.
like, "Oh yeah, it's under this menu." "Oh yeah, right."
Right. Like, because there are some things that we do subconsciously that we know internally. Like a certain way of doing things. I know a certain way of doing things, but that stuff never spoken out loud. It's just something that you know and you do. And sometimes it's hard to make a point.
3 ways to do something.
Exactly. So it's like, well, why are you doing that way instead of this way? And this is something I run into with teaching all the time is I'm a long-winded talker, and I like to talk about those things because I know what it's like to be sitting there like, well, why did they do that? But part of the process is watching them do it and taking the time to figure it out on your own.
And also, online
it would be
resources
nice
too, because like on YouTube now you can find a ton of stuff. But here's my thing about people who post on YouTube: you need to edit yourselves. People need to realize that if you're going to present this information,
yes,
and if video is like longer than 5 minutes, I'm not watching it.
Yeah,
because it'll take you like 3-4 minutes just to get into the problem.
I agree.
And so when I even tried to post something, I tried to personally, like I did something on the shell command a couple years ago to like show how I did. I tried to make sure that I actually wrote down what I'm going to talk about, and I planned out so
instead
I knew
of like hey guys,
it would be like 12 minutes to do it. It's like if I'm a pro and I'm like I need to find like how do I use this tool?
Bam.
I need a quick tip. I need you to get into it really quickly and show.
Well, have you heard of our Ask ZBrush section?
I have.
Because that was really the intention of that was let's just get past all this other stuff. I want one specific thing, go right into it. And Joseph's really great.
I refer to it, and Joseph rocks. I mean,
he just goes right into it. No, like, hey, it's blah 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 from this, and check out my other videos here.
And I love Joseph's stuff on Z Classroom. The thing about Joseph is he's so damn fast. He's like, how I talk fast. He's the same way. I'm like, I have to find myself slowing down his videos.
Yeah,
I'm following along.
Yeah,
he's. What was I? I have to rewind. What did he say?
He's just very methodical, and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's got it all sitting in his head. But you're right. It is tough, especially trying to educate yourself in particular things like that. I find myself spending hours sometimes searching through videos, or if it's another application, I'm trying to learn something else or remember something.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really have to dive in. And it's great with the internet to have the ability to go to YouTube or find a video, but it is it's like you are a researcher. And this is something that I've said in the podcast in the past, but there's not I don't think we get enough credit for the amount of stuff that we have to know. You're a perfect example. All these things that you've learned throughout your career, and not to mention the maintenance that goes into learning a new application, learning, new features, and having to study them or find out, tips and tricks, because there's no one direct place. There's no like university for animation and this is the best place to go. Like, sure, there's good ones, but you're never going to know it all because software continues to, change and be modified and stuff gets moved around. So we have to constantly be on our toes. And it's like that for anybody and any, software application, like any engineer, audio people, it's across the board. So, I feel like that's just like an unspoken thing that we all just like accept that we're just doing, but there's a lot that goes into that. So the creation is important. And that's a good point about keeping it short and sweet. But that is, to your point originally, that is kind of why we want to do, it's not up right now, but ZBrush Live. ZBrush podcast is just more of a, informal conversation, getting to know you, hearing about your experiences and inspiration. But we want to do other stuff.
And this goes live when?
It's going live on Monday,
nice.
February 6th. For anybody that's listening that already heard me talk about it in the introduction, but it's pretty much, a one-stop shop for all these things. So we'll have the Twitch streamers, which will be exactly what you're talking about, which you can watch people, like we have our last guests, Jay and Timothy, which they started their own studio, High Horse Entertainment, and they're showing their pipeline for creating all of their in-game assets,
nice.
And then porting it over to Unreal. And it's all ZBrush and Unreal. And they're just going right through it. And you can ask them direct questions, which is really something we've never done. Like, there's plenty of people on Twitch that are doing it now, but we're trying to kind of hone it in with the best possible people we can come up with and have our own representative. So
Cool.
you would be good for, you can show Sketchbot. You'd be
Yeah.
great for that. Showing people your workflow and your process, or, any of your stuff. That would be a good one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I don't want to take any more of your time, but I have to thank you again for this Sketchbot
You're welcome.
because
Thanks
my
for
other
inviting me.
Sketchbot needed a buddy. And
Well, thanks for inviting me to talk.
dude,
This
of
is
course,
great.
man. I can't wait to see Mark II.
Yeah.
When are we going to see that? Is that
I don't know.
coming
Maybe
anytime soon?
I'll have some renders up maybe like mid-year.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll do a Kickstarter or something.
All
After
right.
See what happens.
All right. We'll keep an eye out. Well, thanks so much, man. We appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And thanks to all you guys too behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And thanks to YouTube LA. This is awesome to come down to the space and do this here.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a good
really
spot.
amazing. Yeah.
Let's go. We should go steal some more muffins.
Yeah. Muffins.
All right. That's ZBrush Podcast number 6 signing out. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, man.